Hi, welcome to Money Talk Viewpoint. This is the podcast for financial professionals, CPAs, attorneys, high net worth advisors, and those who work in the field of the family office. My name is Stuart Cruz. I'm founder of Cruz Asset Management, and I'm going to be your host today on Money Talk Viewpoint. For those of you not familiar with Cruz Asset Management, we're a boutique asset management firm. We make all our investment choices with math and statistics, and we run a virtual family office. And what that means is we're a team-based approach to managing wealth. So just like the Rockefellers have their own family office where they have advisors working together as a team, we want to bring that model and concept to the retail client. Most times the retail client sits in the middle of all their advisors and has to be the interpreter, and we don't think that's the best solution. So as a fiduciary, in order to provide the best alternative investment advice for my clients, I think the experts have to work together on a team. And that brings me to our guest, Bill Himmelstein. It's great to have you on the show. Bill, I'm going to introduce you a little bit here. You are the CEO of a Tenant Advisory Group, and on your LinkedIn profile, this number really stood out to me. It said you save your clients an average of $15,000 per employee in leasing costs and over 20% in purchasing price. Now, to me, that's a mind-blowing and astounding number, and I'm going to get back to that in a second. But before I get there, I just want to say you are like the premier networker in Chicago. You are absolutely everywhere. Fundraiser, golf outings, whatever, boat parties. I see you all over the place. And it looks like you're living your best life and exhausted at the same time.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Stuart. It's always a pleasure to see you. I will not lie. I have a lot of fun. I enjoy my life. But the biggest key on these events is who I'm surrounding myself with, right? I'm always with potential clients and COIs and just really about the quality of people that I'm spending my time with. And I just, people do say, wow, do you ever have any time for your family? And the interesting thing is that, my new marketing person that I brought on a few years ago, she's the one that really taught me how imperative it was to get the photos out there and make these posts. And so while I only go out probably not even once a week, it looks like I'm out there all the time because our posts come out about once a week or so. And so, no, I get to be with my family a tremendous amount, which is wonderful. That's really the goal at the end of the day. But when I do take time away from them, I've got to make sure that it's productive. So yeah, it looks like I'm having fun. And yes, I am enjoying myself and having a great deal of fun. But it's really all about surrounding myself with the right people, making sure I can give them some memorable experiences, and it's still ultimately about growing Tenant Advisory Group in the long term.
Yep, absolutely. And we're going to get to that in a second. I got one more sidebar. So you're a graduate of Washington University in St. Louis. And I noticed on your profile, you're an intramural champion in ping pong, which I love to play, and arm wrestling. Two events that I would not associate championship people. And you and I have met multiple times in person, and you are not a huge guy. Like, you're not a arm wrestling, burly, blah kind of guy. So tell me how you became arm wrestling champ.
Well, I'm going to say thank you to weight classes. It's just like in regular wrestling, the 100 at the time I was probably 130, 140 pounds. Thankfully, I did not have to go up against the heavyweights, but I was able to do pretty well in my weight class. And I will have a caveat to the ping pong championship. In the finals, I was going up against one of my fraternity brothers.
Okay.
Wonderful human being, such a nice gentleman. He was so nice that he dialed it back. I will admit this to this day. He is a much better ping pong player than I was. He had beaten me every time we had played leading up to that finals matchup in the intramurals. He dialed it back to be nice. I ended up taking advantage of it. I got the win, and I refused to play him ever again because I knew he's a better ping pong player, but he was being nice to me, and he kind of let up a little bit, and then he couldn't recover after I surged ahead. So I got lucky there. My fraternity brother was just being a good big brother to me, and so that's how I took the ping pong championships that year.
Were there some betting odds? Maybe he put his money on you. You had the better odds, and he
Just
like that Tyson Jake
sometimes
fight.
you eat the bar, sometimes the bar eats you. I got lucky that day, but the arm wrestling, I was doing well for my weight class. Thankfully, I didn't have to go up against the big boys, or else I would have been crushed.
Well, you definitely look like you're shape and strong. I was just picturing, like this big, really, knocking it down. So let's jump into I'm intrigued well, let's talk to you about your CEO and Tenant Advisory Group. Like, what inspired you to start this venture? Let's start there first.
That's a really good question, Stuart. It was really about the lack of values that I saw the firms that I was working at. And it's not that they were bad people, but they were very focused on, the mantra at all the firms was get hired on the deal, close the deal, get paid on the deal, move on to the next deal.
Yeah.
No mention of relationships, no mention of doing what's right for your client, no mention of being a good steward of your community. Some of the parts about business that, you don't really put a dollar sign or a metric behind being honest, being on time, doing what you say you're going to do. But I found those to be very important and valuable in terms of growing a long-term positive reputation and growing a brand. I didn't see that from anybody I'd worked at. And so I had always, my father was entrepreneurial. So I always had that thought of, I want to do something on my own, but I needed to learn how to be a good broker first. Yeah. And so once I got to that point where people were hiring me because of me and not because of the name behind the company, the company that I worked for. And then I was working the transaction from start to finish. That's when I knew I didn't need anybody else's name but my own to get new clients. And so starting my business, the three core values that we had in, 16 years ago and all the way through till today, it's be responsive, do what you say you're going to do, and put your clients best. None of those things that I ever heard working at any of my competitors. And those are the simple values. I didn't reinvent the wheel with any of those values, but what I've found is those generate sticky relationships. Those generate clients that work for you for the renewal, for the expansion, for their other locations across the country. And that's how we built our business, is by treating our clients well and with honesty, with integrity, and trying to provide them an exceptional experience.
Yeah. So Bill, at least on my side, you froze on that third one. Can you repeat the third value proposition you had? So I just want to get it out there to make sure the audience heard it.
Put your client's best interest first. Because I believe, what I saw from my competitors is they did a lot of putting their own best interests first in the short run, right? Well, if I can get my client to do a longer term lease or take more space, I'll get a larger commission. We're acting as a fiduciary for our clients. And I believe that if you put your client's best interest first, ultimately you are putting your own best interest first in the long run, because you're going to get repeat business. You're going to get referrals. And that's how you're going to grow a sustainable business, is by doing what's right for your client, not what's right for yourself.
Yeah, that's why you and I get along. So I didn't mention I've been writing this book for like years now, but it's called License to Steal: How to Turn Wall Street Greed into Your Gain. And so the title of the book was called License to Steal, because when I got my Series 7 and I passed, I'm in New York, I'm in a training program in New York, and one of the big brokers said, "Did you pass?" I said, "Yes, I did." He goes, "Congratulations, you now have a license to steal." That was the mentality of the broker. How can I steal money from my clients? How can I get more out of them? And I was like, this is not what I signed up for, right? So the book is about, how do I turn the tables? How do I turn Wall Street greed into your gain? We now have a model of being a fiduciary, like I implied in the very beginning. And the only way for us to be a fiduciary is to work with advisors and experts like yourself, specialists like yourself.
That's Stuart. I love that. That's what you were taught early on, is to steal. And you're like, no, let's turn this around and make it about our clients, because we are our clients' fiduciary. We are supposed to be acting in their best interest. And unfortunately, And really, I think it's a lot of the bigger firms in general that they have the mentality of, we got to meet our quarterly estimates. We got to meet our shareholder demands. We got to make this money. And look, you and I are in business to make money as well, but we believe there's a different way of doing it, which is uplifting those along the way, bringing those in our community along with us. As we enjoy success, our clients enjoy success as well.
I don't know who, it might have been like, I don't know, Zig Ziglar or one of the motivational guys, but he said, we are in the business to make money, but the framework, what they put it was, you can get what you want as long as you help enough people get what they want. And that's the mentality, right? We help to get those people what they want, and it's going to come to us eventually, right? That's the
giver's gain.
Yeah.
It's I've lived by that mentality for the last 16 years, and it's really served me quite well.
So I got a couple of questions for you, but in the very beginning, we talked about how you can save $15,000 per employee, 20% purchasing price. So what strategies are you employing while you're negotiating your leases, your buy-side transactions? What are you doing that's different than everybody else?
Yeah, so what I would say, Stuart, is that my competitors are working to get a deal done, right? They want to close the deal, get paid, move on to the next deal that they can get paid on. And I'm working to get the best deal for my client that I possibly can. That's going to be the biggest differentiator. And it shows up by that number of $15,000 per employee. That could be in lowering the rental rate, reducing the escalations, reducing the security deposit, getting more free rent, getting more tenant improvement dollars. There's a lot of different levers to pull. And where I come out of the box, it's not about trying to appease the landlord. That's what my competitors are doing when they're representing tenants and buyers. It's about trying to get a deal done and appease the landlord. I come out with my negotiations, guns blazing. I ask for the sun, the moon, the stars. I want to get it all for my client. Because I know that if my client has the best deal in the building, they're going to talk to other tenants, and other tenants are going to go, you got how much in free rent? I got to talk to your broker.
Yeah.
Or you're paying, your rent is how much below mine? I need to talk to your broker. And that's how we've gotten clients. It's not about getting the deal done and being quick about it. It's about taking your time, trying to take as many bites of the apple as you can, and getting the best possible deal for your client so they come back to you for the renewal, for the expansion, for the new location. And so it's really about pushing that envelope to earn. I'm working not for a commission, but for the future business, for their future referrals. There's a huge difference in working for one commission and going in and saying, okay, landlord, where are we going to get a deal done? Taking their word for that, going back to your client, going, here's the terms I think we can do. I don't need a landlord to tell me where I think we're going to get a deal done. I negotiate enough transactions across this city and other cities across the country. I know where we're going to get a deal done, or at least I know where we should get a deal done. And I'm going to go for pushing for the best possible deal that I can, because I'm working on behalf of my client, the tenant, the buyer, the seller, whoever it is, rather than working for the landlord or the seller just trying to get something done. That's not our approach. So that's really the big differentiator, Stuart.
So you've made a big distinction, and I read a study somewhere, and the gist of the study, I don't know the exact numbers, was it had to do with real estate brokers, not what you're doing specifically, but the client of the real estate broker assumes that they're going to try and get the highest purchase price for the client because they work off commission. So if they get whatever that number is, between 3 and 6%, the higher the purchase price, or the higher the sell price, will be the higher the commission. But when the studies were done, there's a balance between, do I take the extra time to squeeze out the few, whatever, $5,000, $10,000 out of this deal, or do I wrap it up quickly so I can move on to the next deal and get the bigger chunk? I'm getting the lion's share done if I do the deal fast, and I'm not squeezing out those extra dollars. So that's a one-off transactional mindset. You made a huge distinction that your mindset's not for that transaction, but for the long-term gain of the client and the relationship.
100%. And clearly, Stuart, it's not lost on you either that my business is transactional. We are compensated on the closing of a transaction. And that's how all of my competitors approach the business. That's how they teach their team members. And that's what they're preaching is close the deal, get paid, move on to the next. I have very consciously tried to make this into a relationship-based business where when you have a relationship with someone, for example, if you're representing your mother, right, you're going to work extra hard because you care deeply about your mother and you want her financial future to be as strong as possible and as good as possible. And so we're going to take the extra time for those people you care about to do a better job versus the ones where it's just a transaction you're trying to get done, get paid, and move on. Whereas if I treat everybody like I've got a very important, valuable long-term relationship at stake, by nature, by design, they are going to get better results because I am trying to earn their future business, their future referrals. And that's just that's not the approach my competitors take. But when you care about the person that you're representing, you do go the extra mile. You do take the time to explain things and to make sure they get a better deal. And that's really what it all comes down to is it's the relationship versus the transaction.
Yeah, it's hugely important. So I'm going to give although this may never come back to her, I'm going to give a shameless plug for my wife's book. She's writing a book called Stoic Empathy, which has to do with being empathetic towards the other side, not emotionally empathetic, but cognitively empathetic towards the other side to help you negotiate better. If you know what the other side wants, you've got a better idea. So what are the things that you use, the special tools, techniques, things that you navigate in order to negotiate these other deals and restructure and whatnot?
Yeah, wonderful question. And I did earn my CNE, Certified Negotiation Expert designation, probably about 15 years ago now. But you just said it right there. It's really about, there's two types of negotiations. There's a combative negotiation and there's a collaborative negotiation. There are a lot of people in my industry and in other industries as well that they take the combative approach. I'm going to fight. I'm going to yell. I'm going to insult. I'm going to make threats. And I'm going to go out on a negotiation combative style. I'm going to fight for what I can. And what I would argue is that when you take the collaborative approach, and like you just said, and what your wife's book's going to be all about, which is when you take the time to learn about the other side's motivations, what they're trying to accomplish, oftentimes you can secure terms that are more beneficial to both sides. When you understand what the other side is trying to achieve, obviously you know what your side's trying to achieve, and you'll be able to get to a result that is greater for both parties. Now, it's like a prisoner's dilemma, right? You can both fight and achieve little to nothing. One side can win and one side can lose. That's in these corners. Or in the bottom side is you can collaborate and you can both win. I know a landlord's not going to do any deal that's not going to be profitable for them or that their lender says doesn't have enough of a return on it. So what I want to do is get to that number and then figure out how we can move the puzzle pieces around. For example, right now, building owners don't have as much capital and cash reserves as they typically do. So they don't want to give out large tenant improvement packages. Mm-hmm. They would rather give out more free rent and have lower rental rates. Well, I work with a lot of growing businesses that tend to have a lot of capital. They may not want to spend their tax dollars on that money. So they're okay putting the money that they have right now, the cash, into their build outs, into their tenant improvement allowance in exchange for more free rent and lower rental rates. So without collaborating, you don't figure out how to put that puzzle piece together in the best possible way. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking on the negotiation side is I'm not going to make threats. I'm not going to raise my voice and yell. What I am going to do is be a fact-based negotiator. I'm going to tell you, this is what the building down the street is offering us. So this is what you're competing against. I'm not making it up. Here it is. If you want to see the terms, here you go. So if you want this tenant to come to your building, this is where you need to be. And, you know, it's just a much more, I would say that what that does for my clients at the end of the day, I'm able to skip the line if there's multiple people looking to lease or purchase a property, because that seller's agent or landlord's agent knows that A, I'm going to be telling the truth. B, I'm going to follow through with what I say I'm going to do. And C, that it means I can get the deal done and I've got the client, you know, I might have their financials ready. The fact is that when you collaborate with a negotiation, you're able to get a better result than your competitors. And that even means skipping the line in front of your competitors, because the person on the other side of the table would rather deal with me than someone who's going to be yelling at them and berating them and lying to them. That's just not my approach, and it works for me and my clients at the end of the day.
Yeah, bringing my wife, and she was a lawyer, so a lot of lawyers, they would argue, fight, battle, and that just wasn't her style either. She's like, let's be civilized about how we're going to do this. But the whole collaboration model is really what I've been talking about, with the virtual family office. So many times the client sits in the middle, and just by way of example, for me, I might manage assets and the client might need insurance. Every dollar of assets that leave me to buy insurance, I have a conflict of interest over, right? I don't want my money to leave me and buy insurance, but the client might really need it. But if I'm collaborating with the insurance guy now, I can understand what better asset allocation the client needs. We can solve the problem together as opposed to arguing with the client as the go-between. It's such a better model now to bring everybody together and collaborate.
100%. And like I said, it makes it then that insurance broker is going to be more apt to want to talk to you when you call. They'll call you back before someone who's going to yell at them, or they're going to send a client of theirs to you because, hey, this is a guy that sees the value in these other people around the table and can make it work for everybody rather than just themselves.
So that's exactly it. Is me in that, let's say, insurance broker, we have now a relationship. So instead of me fighting over this one transaction, it's a long-term relationship that goes on for years. So we both know we're going to be on each other's side for the client. We both understand that this is a win-win, expand the pie game, not let's fight over the crumbs that are falling.
You're spot on. And that's the key to that long-term sustainable business. You're building a brand. A brand isn't built over transactions. It's built over time with the right relationships where people are pleased with the work you're doing. And that's exactly what you're doing. That's what I'm trying to do.
Fantastic.
I love it.
So I see you're a member of Entrepreneurial's organization. So tell me about that aspect, characteristic for your life that's influenced your approach to business.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about, the old saying, it's lonely at the top. I don't want to come off as if I'm at the top of anything, but I am the CEO and founder of my organization. And my friends who might be working for wonderful companies, but aren't the CEOs or founders, it's a different world. And they don't want to talk about my business. So to have a forum of other business owners that are in similar shoes as you, that you can run ideas past, you can bounce ideas, you can talk about different aspects of your business, whether it's the people side, the marketing side, the insurance side, whatever piece it is, to have that set of advisors, it's invaluable, right? It's so important to be able to talk to others that are in similar shoes to you, which is another reason why I host a lot of the events that I do, and the guests that I have at those, it's all business owners. Yeah. It's not just so I can have a great time at a sporting event or a boat outing or a meal. It's so I can bounce ideas off these people and learn about different things they're doing successfully and not successfully to run their businesses. It's a lot easier to learn a lesson on someone else's back than off of your own, right? If they failed at something, if they can tell you about it before you do it and fail at it too, you're ahead of the game. So if I can surround myself with people that are incredibly intelligent and experienced and have been running these businesses for such a long time, I'm going to be able to be a better leader and a better business owner myself by just asking them questions and then shutting my mouth and listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So the audience for this podcast is CPAs, people that serve the virtual family office, that REAs, wealth advisors, lawyers. So what kind of advice would you give to people that were looking to enhance their commercial real estate investments?
Yeah.
Leasing?
Really simple. We are all taught, how do we build our book of business? Who can I call to get to be my next client? So very inward focused. How can I do better? How can I grow my book and make more money? And I would argue and open that what's really important, and certainly has been very valuable in my career, is when I turned the lens around and started looking outward, saying, how can I support those around me? How can I uplift those in my community so I become more of that trusted advisor, that go-to resource where it doesn't really matter what people need, but they trust my network. And that's really where that philosophy of giver's gain comes into play. I would tell these accountants and attorneys, I know this happens a lot with attorneys, is they start their legal career, they're grinding, they're working on other people's clients, they're doing great work. And then 7, 8 years into their career, they go, well, I'd like to become a partner. How do I do that? And they go, oh, well, you got to bring in your own clients. And no one ever taught them how to do that. Well, I'm going to teach you right now, bringing in your own clients. It's about the giver's gain. It's about finding those people that you want to be your clients and doing what you can to support them in their business. Yeah. Whatever their needs are, whatever their goals are, it might have nothing to do with your product or service. Doesn't matter. Do what you can to support those around you. And that's how you're going to bring in opportunities down the road. Is the ones that you have helped and supported and brought them new clients, they're going to ultimately do the same for you.
Yeah, 100%. So I always ask, we're talking about a lot of positive stuff. Let's talk about the negative stuff. Like, where are the pitfalls? Where are the mistakes? Where are the big holes? Where, even by way of example, have you seen some great examples of things where you're like, oh my gosh, if they'd only talked to me, what are some big mistakes that people can avoid? Well,
number one, I think the biggest mistake for entrepreneurs is getting out of their own way. They need to get out of there. They think they can do everything. They try, they wear so many different hats. And not only are they overworked and exhausted and burnt out, but not all of us are good at many different things. Most of us, I would say, are good at a couple of things, right? One, maybe two. And it's the rest of those things that we need to bring in the right people to be in the right seats, and that's something that I learned the hard way. I was horrible at hiring talent. I thought I could do it. But once I outsourced it to recruiting firms, I got the best people that allowed my business to truly flourish and grow, because I was then focused on the small few things that I'm good at, letting other people do the great things that they're great at. And that's been a huge amount of success brought in because of that. But also, one thing I might share with your listeners is don't get so caught up in other people's definition of success. Have your own definition of success. We all were growing up, I'm going to say the older generation that I'm a part of and older, it was about money. That was your definition of success, is, keeping up with the Joneses, getting a bigger house in the next, and having more money. And money is important, right? To be able to allow you to do some of the things that you want to be able to do. But I think what would be valuable for people listening to this is coming up with your own definition of success and striving to meet that, rather than the traditional definition, which is achieve as much as you can and make as much money as you can. There's values to some of those things, and that can be helpful. But what's important to someone like me is being able to spend quality time with my family, my wife and children, my parents, my brothers and sister-in-laws and their children. That's what's important to me. So I try to structure a lifestyle that's not all about work. And part of my lifestyle is, one of my core values, I've got family, community, fun. I did this exercise with my therapist a few years ago. Okay. And we identified that fun is a pretty huge core value of mine. Yeah. So what I've been able to do is take this into my work and translate fun into growing my business, bringing these clients and prospects to these fun events.
That's why you're on the boat.
Killing two birds with one stone. I get to build my business while having fun. Yeah. And I'm very grateful and thankful that I can do that. But so can anyone else. Anyone else can do that as well. It's just really bringing it back to have your own definition of success and strive for that, not other people's definition of success.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you see somebody, he makes a lot of money, he's driving a super fancy car, he's in the worst health possible, or, his terrible relationship with his kids, or, or mentally, he just can't do it. Like, he's at the end of, like, you got to have the balance all around, or you're what's the life worth living for, right? I mean,
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to pick on attorneys, but they have a very high rate of dissatisfaction with their profession. Why is that? Well, the model is work as hard as you can for as long as you can to get to partner, and that's when you've made it. I would challenge that, right? I mean, yes, we all want to be successful, but just what does success mean to you? Go for that. Spending time with your family. I think most people would say on their deathbeds, boy, I spent way too much time with my family. I should have spent more time in the office, right?
Yeah.
Nobody says that.
Nobody.
It's the opposite. They said, boy, why was I working so hard when I could have been at my kids' games and recitals and gone on a date night with my wife more often? I mean, that's what I don't want to generalize. That's what I care about. That's what's important to me. And I try to live that now before, and it's not just being in bad health. There's plenty of other things that can get you on a whim. You have no idea tomorrow's not guaranteed. So let's live today. That, I hate the cliche that it's like it's our last, but just live each day that it's valuable. It's important to you, and try and spend it how you want to be spending it.
Yeah, 100%. It's such a great message. And I hate to bring it back to the more business side, but I have to ask this question before we wrap things up. Like, what are the trends that you see in commercial real estate that could impact the planning or, the future business?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I do have a few thoughts in the commercial real estate space. So number one, office space. We'll start there. We're seeing some of the highest vacancy rates that we've had in a long time. We're seeing a lot of foreclosures, deeds in lieu of foreclosures. What it all means for the business owner, that's who I care about, that's who I represent. There's going to be tremendous opportunities for your business to acquire office space on the cheap. You're going to get some amazing deals. We're talking 30 to 40% lower than pre-pandemic deals. So that's the office side. What's really a little bit more tricky is the industrial and warehouse side. Our vacancy rates across the country, not just Chicagoland, but across the country, are hovering around 4 to 5%.
Oh,
But what that's taking into account, which by the way is historically low,
it seems really low. Yeah.
that's taking into account, Stuart, a huge amount of big box spaces, 500,000 to a million square foot spaces that are geared towards the Fortune 500 firms like Amazon, Procter and Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, Targets of the world. They're not really taking those spaces as much anymore. When you look at the supply of spaces of the, call it 50 to 250,000 square feet. So for the small and medium-sized businesses, which are really the vast majority of businesses that are out there, and that's the type of space that they need, the vacancy rate for spaces between 50 and 250,000 square feet, it's under 2% in a lot of markets. It's 3% or less all over the country, right? And so the biggest key there, the takeaway for my advice, if you are in the need for industrial or warehouse space, start early, number one, because there's not going to be a lot of supply for you. There's going to be a huge amount of demand competing for that supply, whether you're trying to lease or purchase. So get ahead of the curve by starting early. And number two, you've got to get a good broker, a broker that knows how to skip the line and knows how to get your business to the landlord or seller's eyes first, and to catch their eye and to say, this is the tenant or buyer that we want to go under contract with. There's a lot of ways that I know how to do that. There's a lot of ways that good brokers will be able to do that, but most brokers just sit and wait for something to happen. If you can find a broker that's going to be proactive, that knows how to skip the line and secure your business, the space, when there's 3, 4, 5 other tenants or buyers looking at it, that's what's happening right now. When I have a client looking at space, there's always a line. There's always people that have proposals out already that are trying to buy it or lease it ahead of my client. And you'll see in my client testimonials and my Google reviews, my clients are thanking me, hey, we got this space even though we were 3rd, 4th, 5th in line by the time we showed up to look at it. That's the type of broker that these businesses need right now.
That sounds fantastic. And I was going to ask, what could people, CPAs, REAs, family offices, those people do? And you really just answered the question. You need to find that relationship that knows what they're doing.
Well, and same thing with the attorneys and the CPAs. They know that the tax deadline is April 15th. So start with your clients earlier. Have a year end. Hey, how'd this year go? What are we looking at? What are the documents we need to be looking to bring in? There's CPAs can very easily get ahead of things. So you're not scrambling 2 days before the deadline to get things in order. I hate that. I want to be ahead of the game. I want to be ahead of the curve and, not be in a rush. Same thing with attorneys. It can be anything from litigators to trust and estate attorneys to the real estate attorneys. It doesn't matter. Different documents that the other side's going to want to see. How the negotiation is going to go. Get ahead of things. Smooth the path out for your client so they have a good experience with you. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when your client has a great experience with you as their service provider, they're going to come back to you. They're going to refer you. They're going to want others to have that same experience. And so anything you can do to allow your client and prospects to have a good experience, that's going to be in your best interest in the long run, 100%.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, Bill, it's been amazing having you on as a guest. I've learned a tremendous amount about your space. How do people get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to reach out?
So I respond very well to email. It's bill@tagcommercialbroker.com, TAG commercialbroker.com, and our website, www.tagcommercialbroker.com. Those are the ways. Email is great. And, I will always get back. I will always respond to somebody, no matter what it is, whether I can provide that service or not. I'm going to tell them whether I can or not, but I will respond to anybody that reaches out because that's part of the DNA that's been ingrained in me.
Yeah. Wonderful. It's fantastic. And obviously you're super passionate about what you do and about your clients and about helping them and giving them the best experience possible. And that's all anybody can ask for, right? Well,
Thanks.
I guess they can ask for your expertise as well, which you clearly have. So I've been your host, Stuart Cruz, for Money Talk Viewpoint. We've been a pleasure to have you here watching the show. It's been amazing having Bill on as a guest. For those of you who want to be a guest on the show, please reach out to moneytalkviewpoint.org. My name is Stuart Cruz. This is the podcast for financial professionals that service the virtual family office and family office space. Thank you so much for watching. And I like to say, we are here to help you be better every day.